I'm Jack, host of the new comedic news and pop culture podcast, The Daily Zeitgeist from How Stuff Works. A little bit about me. I've listened to almost every episode of Stuff You Should Know and Stuff You Missed in History Class. I'm the co-founder and was the editor-in-chief of Cracked for the last 11 years. And our show is basically the day's news and pop culture filtered through a brain that contains all the information that entails.
And I'm Miles Gray, Jack's co-host, a former political operative and pop culture addict, like something I actually take medication for.
He does. And sometimes he's a bunch of different people, like Michael McDonald.
Tell him he's a stranger.
Japanese radio DJ.
Minasan ohayou gozaimasu, Midas desu.
And Making a Murderer's Brendan Dassey.
Yeah. No.
Just a fair warning, guys, you're going to learn a lot, but some of the content can get a little edgy, so not for young ears, but trust us, it's all in good fun. So go to Apple Podcasts and listen and subscribe to The Daily Zeitgeist. It's really good, is our catchphrase. We're still working on it.
Glad you're with us. Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests, like Peter King in a few minutes, will join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Mike, you know what I'm confused about?
What's that?
Bitcoin.
Bitcoins.
Yeah. You get that at all?
I wish I was involved.
I wish I'd bought them a long time ago.
Yeah, how about it?
They're up to like 16,600.
Yeah.
I don't, Bitcoin.
Yeah.
To me, it's like war. Wins above replacement. It's all mythical and magical.
You don't understand it, yet it leads to some people making a whole lot of money, which makes us want to be involved.
Not us.
So maybe we should have paid a little more attention at some point, huh?
Stanzik's laughing at us. I think Stanzik is like a Bitcoin genius, right? I think he's one of those guys that's probably soaking it in.
I don't know if anybody understands Bitcoin, yet people are getting rich off it. It's really amazing. I guess I'm just saying that because we don't.
All I know is that we're not getting rich
off
it.
Well, one thing I will say, when we talk about Cliff playing the music coming back at different points of the show, he's playing a lot of our era music at times, and both Trey and I are in our 50s. Justin tweets in, with all due respect, I'm about half your age and have known every song played when coming back from commercial break.
Yeah.
My parents raised me right.
There you go.
Love
that.
that,
Justin?
Justin.
Justin, you're in the club.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
You're in the club.
Been good tunes. And then, you may not be so happy now.
Why is that?
Vinny took a shot at you. Vinny took a shot. You're wearing kind of like a athletic.
It's a Johnny O
type of a
zip. Yeah.
Pullover type thing.
Yeah.
And Vinny says, what's up with Wingo and the way he's dressing? He looks like a backup goalie for an indoor soccer team. He won't even let you be the starting goalie.
Well, I think that's probably a wise choice.
Yeah?
I think I'm dressing to the height of my athletic prowess.
Did he hit you? Did he hit the nail on the head?
I think I probably would be a very good backup goalie for an indoor soccer team.
If you tried your hardest in sports in your life, you think the highest you would have hit is a backup goalie on an indoor soccer team?
Maybe third string. Maybe the guy they call when the first two are down, and they say, look, we won't play you, but we need someone on the bench just in case all hell breaks loose.
Are you the guy that wears the sweats and underneath you don't really have your uniform on?
Oh, no, I got
Coach, I don't have my uniform. Go on in, Wingo. Coach, I don't have my uniform on.
Got to keep the zip on, Coach. I got a deal I'm working with here. So, Vinny, you're right. I mean, you're right. I'm dressing for what I am athletically.
There you go.
And we're glad we got that cleared up. And by the way, Justin, you're in the club. And Cliff, by the way, is the decider of who gets in the club.
That's very true.
All right, we got Peter King coming up in a few minutes, but let's do what we do sometimes off the top of the hour with...
It's time for... Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not, it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
All right, we start off the top with a change at the top of the front office for the Cleveland Browns. Former Chiefs general manager John Dorsey has been named the new GM of the Browns and will be introduced at a news conference today.
Going to be interesting, and again, we'll ask Peter King about
Absolutely.
this, is the Rooney Rule, which not only affects coaches but management position as well, to interview minorities for the job. And Cleveland has said they have satisfied this. Now, is it that Sashi Brown was a VP, not a GM? Can they get around? We don't know what their explanation is for that, but they certainly had their eye. And as many people would ask, why are you firing a guy right now? You're firing a guy now because you know he's not going to be there at the end of the year, and there are other teams out there looking for people in the same position you want, i.e., in this case, the Giants, and in different years it's different teams. So you want to try and get your guy, and they've obviously had their eye on John Dorsey. John Dorsey is the scout type of guy, where Cleveland had gone to the type of Moneyball thought process.
Right.
John Dorsey is really anything but the Moneyball type of process. So we'll see what he does with the rest of the management team there with the Browns.
Well, that's the thing. What does this mean for Paul DePodesta?
Right.
And what does it mean for Hugh Jackson? Because they've already said Hugh's coming back next year. Well, if you're in John Dorsey, don't you want to have your own guy?
Very tough.
Nothing against Hugh. I'm just saying if I'm the GM and I want to put my fingerprints on this team, let me put my fingerprints on this team.
That's normally the way it goes. Yeah, the GM picks the coach.
All right, we'll see what happens going forward. Okay, we'll touch on that with Peter King when he joins us in just a few minutes. We continue.
Off the top.
Baker Mayfield doing that EGOT thing, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony.
Yes.
He is cleaning up. He won the Heisman. He's a Heisman Trophy frontrunner, which we think he's going to win in a landslide on Saturday. He won the Maxwell Award Thursday night for the Player of the Year, the Camp Award for the Player of the Year, and the Davey O'Brien Award for Best Quarterback.
Yeah, he's won them all. Obviously, as the playoffs going into that to worry about, and we'll watch that in a couple of weeks. But a lot of discussion then is going to be, where is he going to go in the draft? His name was not brought up with the other quarterbacks, the Josh Rosens, Josh Allens, and Sam Darnolds and Mason Rudolphs and those types. Now it's being brought up, and should it be? A lot of people are asking. And a tweet says he has the X factor, kind of like Wilson and Drew Brees, who didn't have the prototypical size. And to that point, Baker Mayfield's like 6'1". He's listed at 6'1", 220. Right. So we'll see what his actual numbers are when he gets to the combine. But he isn't a prototypical size. The big plus for Mayfield, he's got a lot of experience, and he seems to have that it factor, which I do think is. I said that about Deshaun Watson, who is very talented, obviously, in the pocket, outside of the pocket. But I thought he had that it factor as well. And it certainly seems Baker Mayfield has that, but the evaluation process will be very, very interesting going forward with Baker.
Yeah, he may be the most interesting guy of all the quarterbacks in the draft where you see him falling because of the things you're talking about. And lastly, on
Off the top.
Little NBA news, the Nets have acquired Jahlil Okafor in a trade with the 76ers. Brooklyn has also landed guard Nick Stauskas and 29 second-rounder, while the Sixers get Trevor Booker.
Listen, he wanted out. He played just 2 games this year. He's the third choice in the 2015 draft. You see it's Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. They are the stars of that team, and they are true, real stars. Okafor isn't finding a place on that team, so he's like, basically, let me go somewhere else, and somewhere else is the Nets. So you make that move, and now he's happy. He's going to go play and get to do his thing, but I'd like to keep this on the 76ers, because going back to Sam Hinkie and the plan that he had, and he's nowhere to be found anymore, but he's just going to watch from afar as his plan comes to fruition.
Yeah, listen, it's working out. By the way, Joel Embiid had the greatest line ever about Jahlil Okafor. It said, "I love you, and then I'm going to kick your ass 4 times a year when I play."
There you go.
So it's pretty straightforward. All right, and that was Off the Top, and we move on now, and we're delighted to be joined by Peter King of the Monday Morning Quarterback, who joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. And Peter, speaking of making the switch, the Browns have done that. They may have landed the right guy in GM John Dorsey, but are you concerned at all about the process and how quickly this came about, and whether or not the Rooney Rule was satisfied in the way it's supposed to be satisfied?
Well, the one thing we don't know yet, Trey, at least that I don't know yet, is how long this has been going on. I mean, has Jimmy and Dee Haslam, and whatever fact finders they have used, did they do 10 interviews, 2 interviews, 1.5 interviews? We just don't know yet. So, I mean, we'll find out today when Jimmy Haslam speaks what exactly he says about whether a minority candidate was involved here, and then we'll be able to make a judgment. I don't know that we can make a judgment right now.
Going forward with Dorsey and knowing the type of GM he is with the scout blood in his system, and knowing the direction Cleveland was going this year, we put the term Moneyball somewhere with it. Is that completely now done, do you think, or will there be a combination of, or do you think Dorsey basically cleaned some house in the management division? That's
a great question, Mike, and I think when I first heard that Dorsey was involved yesterday, the one thing I thought was, and I don't just mean you personally, but I mean the people of Cleveland, the classic football fans, the Mike Golick family, will really love this appointment, because that's what John Dorsey is about. The last time that I saw John Dorsey was in his office in Kansas City in a little building right next to Arrowhead Stadium where the Chiefs have their facility. And he was sitting in a dark room watching tape, and he took some time out to talk to me. And to me, that is John Dorsey. You know, okay, I'm going to talk to you, but I need to get back to my tape. And he's a pleasant guy. He's a very, very smart football guy and a great judge of talent. And I think if Cleveland was going to pick somebody at this point, I just think he's a really good choice because you've got a football coach in Hugh Jackson who is old school football coach. And I think John Dorsey is an old school Ron Wolf trained football guy. And so that's why I think this is a better match than the previous one. Now, your question, Mike, about Paul DePodesta right now, that's my question too. And I asked the question to somebody there yesterday, and I got a we don't know yet back, you know. And so we'll find out whether Paul DePodesta stays and whether he can have some role in this organization going forward.
Well, yeah, and then, you know, the idea, Peter, as Peter King from the Monday Morning Quarterback joins us, you know, that Jimmy Haslam has already said, hey, Hugh Jackson's coming back next year. It does seem like you'd sort of want the GM to sort of put the pieces together, and it seems like some of those pieces are being put together for him. Yeah,
and I mean, look, at this point, I believe that Sashi Brown was the guy who picked these guys, and Paul DePodesta wasn't. Paul DePodesta was an advisor. He was not a string puller. And so I don't think – I'm not going to really believe many people who say that DePodesta picked these guys because I don't think he did. But now I think it will be more of two guys on the same page, especially in a draft next year when you've got 5 picks in the first 2 rounds, and after bypassing so many capable quarterbacks, whether you like any of these guys a lot or not, you got to pick one of them.
Yeah, you know, Peter, whenever I go along these lines, I always go back to the old Bills general manager trying to sell the job. It's a good job, you know, being the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Could you make the argument now that they have a guy in Dorsey who, as you alluded to, is an old school guy who has a track record, and you look at the resources in terms of the upcoming draft that they have in 2018, an extra first rounder, 2 extra second rounders, 6 extra picks in total, lots of cap space. There actually might be real reason for optimism that this could be sort of the group that might be able to turn these picks into actual players, which has been the problem for the Browns the last few years.
Yeah, well, we've said that, Trey, a lot, with a lot of different, with a lot of different coach/GM combinations. And, you know, the only thing I would say about this one is that to me, I think it's more of a match between coach, and I don't even know how well or if these guys know each other well at all, but knowing both men, they fit each other pretty well, I think. And I'll just say one other thing. I was talking to Joe Thomas a couple of weeks ago, and I expected Joe Thomas to be fairly reserved in his praise because Joe Thomas, to me, he's one of the ultimate, like, really honest guys who's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. Joe Thomas loves Hugh Jackson. He loves the guy. He thinks that he is the guy, no matter what the record is, who can turn this team around, and the players are listening to him and doing what he says. So I definitely think that this group has a chance, and now we'll see if they can do it.
Talking to Peter King on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Overall, and going into next year in a kind of a reactionary mode, we've seen on the field more players getting tossed. We've seen what's gone on with Mike Evans and Gronkowski and the fight with Crabtree and Talib, and then certainly the hits by Smith and by George Iloka. So we've seen all the different things and others that have gone on in the field. Now, Peter, there's all the talk now about should there be more defined games with action on the field? Should this mean 3 games to 5 games, a range? Then there's also talk of are they going to institute the targeting rule that's in college right now? all in a reactionary measure of this is what's going on, how do we react to it? How do you think the NFL reacts to what's going on the field as far as discipline coming up next year?
That is a great question, Mike, and I think it's on the mind of a lot of people around the league. I think it ranges from this was really one of Jerry Jones's flashpoints and what really had him hot in the off season, and that is he thinks the NFL is way too suspension happy. A 1-game suspension in football is equivalent to a 5-game suspension in the NHL or NBA, or a 10-game suspension in Major League Baseball, and that the suspensions are given out too willy-nilly. Now, I think we're entering a very interesting point of NFL history, which is a time that more and more parents around the country are watching the NFL, and if they decide it's too violent, they're not going to let their kids play. And that's just the way life is right now, and the NFL has to respond to this. They don't have to be scared by it, and football is not going away, but I think they have to be cautious and they have to be responsive to the fact of people who want to see JoJo Smith-Schuster standing over a guy who may be unconscious and laying on the ground and taunting him while one of his own teammates is laying in the hospital and he has no idea whether he's ever going to walk again. The optics of that, not to mention the idiocy of that, is pretty high, is pretty bad, I should say. So, the NFL obviously is going to be concerned, but I would agree. I think there needs to be a more well-defined and not so, week-by-week approach to how players are suspended.
Yeah, Peter King with us on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Peter, you alluded to it after the Monday night game with those hits on the Monday morning quarterback. What are you saying to parents who say, do we want our kids playing this game? And it is sort of Mike Mitchell had that epic rant that he went on after that game, and I think that was a little bit I don't want to say upsetting, but because these are rules that the NFL's tried to implement over 5 or 6 years now. I can remember, Peter, when they first put out Ray Anderson, who's now at Arizona State and has just poached Herm Edwards away from us. Thank you very much. Yeah. When he was out of the officials, put out that tape and said, "Look, this is a hit. This is a clean hit. This is not a hit, and this is a bad hit." And we had Channing Crowder saying, "Look, this is my helmet. If you give me my helmet," at that point, a linebacker for the Dolphins, saying, if I'm going to use it as a weapon, we're still, it's sort of a little unsettling that 6-7 years removed from that, we're still having to let people understand, no, that's not what that's for. That's something that's a protective piece of equipment, right, and we need to do things differently now.
Well, I think the one thing that players and look, if I were a player and I accidentally I was going to tackle somebody, he lowered his head and we went helmet to helmet. It's one of those things like with a baseball pitcher. When a ball absolutely seriously just slips and you hit a guy either in the helmet or wherever in the face, and it's a terrible thing and you didn't mean to do it, it doesn't matter. You still did it. And it's the exact same thing that the NFL is going to maintain. If you hit a defenseless player helmet to helmet, you are responsible for that. You're either going to get heavily fined or suspended. That's just the way the game is going, and I think for long-term efficacy, intelligence of the game, that's the way the game should be going.
Well, we'll see if that continues to be in that trend. Peter, as always, we appreciate you being with us. And we hear, by the way, you're a fan of the music of the show. So
I love the music of the show, Trey. I'm sure that you picked it out, didn't you?
No, it's all Cliff. That's all Cliff. But Peter, Enfield, Connecticut's own Peter
there
King,
you go.
by the way. Peter, thanks for being with us, my friend.
Thanks, guys.
Peter King with us on the Monday Morning. See, Cliff's club just continues.
He is.
To
it's exactly
Cliff's
right.
Club. That's what we're going to call it.
Everybody growing in the club.
We're all playing in Cliff's club.
There you go.
All right, so we've talked about this a lot, but there's something that's going to happen this weekend for the first time that's pretty cool. There's not a lot of college football games this weekend, obviously, but the biggest one is the Army-Navy game. And for the first time this year in the Army-Navy game, we have something that's never happened before. One of the cadets, Simone Askew, will perform one of the final checks on the Army's 4,400 members of the Corps of Cadets. Then she will lead them onto the turf in the ceremonial march on as first captain, the first African-American woman to hold the highest student position at the military academy.
And again, first captain, basically what that is, she's the public face of the academy's student body. She is representing them. And as Trey mentioned, the first African-American woman to hold that honor. So, and when I was playing with the Eagles, and we played at the Vet, and that game would be at the Vet on a Saturday, whether we had walked through that morning or we had walked through before we took off for an away game, we would always stay around and see the beginning of that. And it's an incredible thing right there. And for Askew she grew up loving the military schools and always wanted to be part of them. She broke barriers as the first African-American woman to be named first captain. 37 years after the current four-star general, Vincent Brooks, became the first African-American to hold the position. That same year, Pat Locke became the first African-American woman to graduate from the academy, which admitted its first class of women in 1976. So it's just a fantastic honor for someone who has always loved the military academies and now is living that and what she wants to do. So what a great moment for her, for all the academies out there, and for all of us. I think it's a very, very cool thing.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the game. And actually, there could be snow at the Army-Navy game this weekend, which would be great. But more on Askew, after she serves her term as first captain and graduates this spring, all she's going to do is head off to Oxford in September, where she's hoping to complete 2 one-year master's programs as one of 32 Rhodes Scholars selected nationwide. So in other words, we're all living in her world.
Yeah,
the rest of us,
how about it?
The rest of us are way below
Yeah.
what Simone Askew is doing. So congratulations to her.
Absolutely.
Look forward to seeing that honor this weekend. And then, of course, continued success as she goes on to be a Rhodes Scholar. Coming up, Week 14 in the NFL, including a showdown between the top 2 picks in the 2016 draft, Jared Goff and Carson Wentz.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
All right, Trey, so you brought up Bitcoins before.
Yes, for no reason whatsoever, except that apparently I don't know what they are, and they're worth a lot of money.
Bitcoin is worth $16,000?
I think it's up to $16,600. It was at 17 at one point yesterday. And fell
so
back
it's gone down. Oh, no.
So you missed your chance.
How about this? Talk about getting in on the ground floor of things. That's something you'd all love to be able to hit something. You're on the ground floor before it becomes big, and then you have it, and all of a sudden it gets big, and wow, you're a millionaire. British singer Lily Allen, who, by the way, is a sister of Alfie Allen, who plays Theon on Game of Thrones.
Yes, or Reek, if you Rick from another episode.
There you go. This British singer reportedly turned down a singing gig about 7 years ago for which she was offered, for pay, hundreds of thousands of Bitcoins.
Okay, but at that point, they weren't actual money,
so you would have had to say, okay, I'll take a shot on these, pay me in those. She didn't. 200,000. By the way, today 200,000 Bitcoins would be worth 1.5 billion. That's with a B. $billion. Oh,
might want to rethink that one.
Obviously, you don't know, but that's those chances. Say, you know what? We'll see where this goes. Yeah, I'll take it in Bitcoins. Give it to me.
And just so people understand, that's 1,500 million millions. That's
I know you like that whole million things.
It's crazy.
Confusing to me.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, there was some guy, I can't remember his name. He sold off like his 20% share in Apple for like $10,000 in the 70s. That would have been worth like $500 million.
Oh my gosh!
So, and that's look, I don't understand Bitcoins. If someone does, that's wonderful.
It would have been great to say, "Hey, Bitcoins are worth 16,000," and you go, Oh, man, you know what? I remember about 7 years ago, I did this gig. I think I got about 100,000
Let me go look it up. Yeah.
Somewhere.
That's like that movie Holes that came out, and they found the box with all the AT&T shares in it and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
You just stumble into gazillion dollars.
Wow, that's
good
fantastic.
for you. Well, you know what? Maybe she can make it. No, there's no way you're making it.
No, you're not making it. No, you're not.
You're just going to have to kiss that one goodbye. All right, we are Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. Look, lots to get into football-wise. You want to do it now?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, Week 14, let's play.
This is 5 Point Stance on Golic and Wingo.
All right, we start the 5 Point Stance with the big showdown this weekend in L.A. Jared Goff, number 1 overall pick in the 2016 draft. Carson Wentz, 2nd overall in 2016 draft. The 7th pair of quarterbacks in the common draft era to be taken 1-2 in the same year. It will be the 8th time in that era that those quarterbacks face off against each other. Although, Mike, let's be clear, they're actually not facing off against each other.
Yes, they are not facing off against one another. So they're facing off against other defenses. And in this case, you're going up against Goff is going up against a 3rd-ranked defense in the league in Philadelphia. So certainly a big test for him. He's been the bigger story, obviously. Carson Wentz, we saw him play well last year, and he's taken it to that next level. Goff, we were ready to kind of put aside, but we just love what they've done with the offensive line. Gurley even more involved in the passing game, and certainly and getting more weapons on the outside, and then Goff. I am so. This is one of the top games, obviously, this weekend to look forward to. It's only one game, but for Philadelphia, which really is battling Minnesota now, who plays Carolina. For that top spot in the conference. This is where you are now as the last quarter of that season goes. Are you a bad team looking to look at other players and just finish out the string? Are you fighting for that playoff spot, whether it's division or wild card, or are you trying to get the road through the Super Bowl to run through your building? And that's exactly where Philadelphia is.
Well, look, they're in real danger if they lose this game. They were 10-1, had a 9-game winning streak. They lost up in Seattle. If they drop another one, there's a real good chance that they could go from being the number 1 seed to the 3 seed.
Yeah.
And so that would change things dramatically for them. By the way, according to the Elias Sports Bureau, Sunday's Eagles-Rams game will be the second matchup since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger between two teams averaging at least 30 points per game this late in the season, and the first since 1983 when Washington beat the Cowboys 31-10. And ironically, or interestingly, or coincidentally, however you want to put it, both teams are averaging the exact same number, 30.1 points per game.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And Carson Wentz does a great job of escaping, and the Rams' defense is better at pass rushing than stopping the run. So it would really, and this isn't rocket science, for Philadelphia.
It's not Bitcoin science either.
There you go. To get that running game going to help with that play action, because if that Ram D-line could just kind of pin their ears back, they're tough to block.
Yeah, and that was the issue in Seattle. They didn't quite get the running game going, and Seattle was able to get after Wentz, even though he made some great throws. All right, we continue on our 5-point stance. The Patriots can clinch their 9th straight AFC East title with a win or a Bills loss or tie, which will extend their NFL record for most consecutive division titles. A win would also clinch their 8th straight 11-win season, which would pass the Colts for the longest such streak in NFL history.
Listen, there's not a ton to talk about here. They're the best team in the AFC right now. Glass half full, you want to say about Gronk. He gets a week to rest.
Yeah.
Gronk's still obviously a great player who did a very dumb thing. He's going to sit a game. So for New England, they're doing what we give them credit for doing. We were surprised early on when they lost 2 games at home, but we're like, if a team can figure it out, it's the New England Patriots. And that's exactly what they're doing. So not really a lot to digest here.
And by the way, what's the common theme here? 8th straight 11-win season, which would pass the 2003 through 2009 Colts. What do those teams both have in common? Stability and excellence at quarterback.
Yep.
Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. By the way, 5-point stance brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit us at geico.com or call 1-800-947-AUTO. We continue with our 5-point stance. The 1992 Chargers, as we have said, the only team in NFL history to make the playoffs after an 0-4 start. They finished 11-5 that year. But now the 2017 Chargers are now 6-6, tied, and it's a 3-way tie right now for the AFC West lead after starting 0-4. According to the Football Power Index, the Chargers have a 38% chance of making the playoffs. They finish Washington, at Kansas City, at the Jets, home for Oakland.
Yeah, listen, this is the team where we talk about it's not where you start, it's where you finish when you're peaking at the right time. Phillip Rivers continuing to do his thing. Just 7 interceptions to go with the 21 touchdowns. Melvin Gordon showing the versatility, being able to stay on the field, but then showing the versatility that we all thought he had coming into the league. And boy, Keenan Allen, he has really, really been something for them. So you give a lot of credit to this team. Just kind of, it's always the team, or they've always been that team. Rivers down late in the game, ball. Can he get this team to victory too? They've just watched the other team slide right back on down to them. So it's right there for them. So if you're a team like Oakland or Kansas City, are like, hey, okay, no matter what happened, forget it. We're all 6-6. We all got a shot going forward. For the Chargers, it's like, hey, what we've done, remember it, because we're catching these teams that are falling back to us. So it's just a different vibe for each team in the way they're going.
And again, a huge showdown also not involving the Chargers in the AFC West as the Raiders and the Chiefs get it going. And remember, the Raiders have already beaten the Chiefs in that epic Thursday night comeback where they had, 3 chances to get it in on the final play because of all the penalties. So a huge game in the AFC West coming up. Continuing the 5-point stance, Case Keenum is second in the league in total QBR, 75.4 out of 100, which is the ESPN-based metric, trailing only Deshaun Watson at 81.8, but obviously he hasn't played for a while. Keenum was last in the league with a 37.5 total QBR last season.
Now, listen, what he's doing, obviously, it's been fantastic. He's making himself a ton of money right now, no question about that. And so this team now in a battle, as I said, with Philadelphia for the top spot in the conference, and a tough game for them. Was it Carolina, right? Minnesota's
at Carolina. Third straight road game.
You're going against a defense. This is, I think, one of the smartest. You look at middle linebackers that run defenses, and guys that have done it in a great way. You go back to obviously to the greats up on through, and today there are guys like Luke Kuechly who dissect the play. They pre-read just like quarterbacks do on the offense, and the way he's able to do that and put his players in the right position. I'm really looking forward to this matchup because of the weapons that Minnesota has on the outside with the receivers in Thielen and Diggs and Rudolph at tight end. Lost Dalvin Cook at the running back position, but I'm going to love this because the talent on that Carolina defense is certainly there, especially in the front seven. But the way Luke can break it down, that to me is a great matchup. The quarterback pre-snap read to get your team in the right position, and the linebacker pre-snap read to figure out what they're doing and get them in position. I'd say great. Just watch before the play. Watch the quarterback talking. Watch Kuechly pointing and talking to everybody. It's just, this is when all the study during the week, when all the practice and all the game film, this is when it all comes to fruition, about 10 seconds to 5 seconds to 3 seconds before a play, and then 1 second after the ball is snapped until everything is declared.
Look, Teddy Bruschi says it all the time on NFL Live. If you take your eyes off the ball, you may learn something about football. And you're talking about that with Luke Kuechly. That's
exactly right.
Certainly the case. You can't overstate this enough. Case Keenum is really the third-string quarterback, or was the idea of being the third-string quarterback for Minnesota. And he's on an MVP pace. He really is. And yet every week he's just the starter for next week. So I mean, what does a guy have to do to get a little more solidarity backing? But he's been playing great. And we finish up our 5-point stance with our football power index. Gives the Browns a 40% chance of winning Sunday against the Packers. That's their best chance of winning the rest of the season. The Browns are 4-40 in their last 44 games.
For all that's going on, Trey, the Browns players actually got some good news in the last day.
Yeah.
You know what the good news was? They know who their coach is next year.
Correct.
There is something, because I've certainly been through this. We're coming to the end of the year. You know you're not going anywhere, and you don't know if the coach is going to be there. So, listen, I know most people just watch and you say, well, you're just supposed to go out there and play. Just go play. That's what you do. But, man, when guys' livelihoods are on the line, moving families, all that thought process is on the line, it can take on a different air. So, to me, there is something for the players, at least the comfort of knowing that head coach they're listening to, who's directing them and coaching them, he's going to be the guy that's coaching you, and most likely means the guy coaching your position, he's going to be there as well.
Right.
And that's who players deal with the most. It's not the head coach, it's the assistant coach, of which if you get a new head coach, you're going to get a new assistant coach. So there is that small level of stability that the players did get yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it sounds weird that a 40% chance is their best chance, but that's sort of the way it is. They haven't won a game on Sunday in a couple of years. I mean, Hugh Jackson is 0 for September, October, and November in his career as the Browns head coach. They did have that win in December last season, but that was on a Thursday. By the way, according to the Elias Sports Bureau, a loss Sunday would give them the worst 45-game stretch in the history of the NFL. That would drop them to 4-41. And that was indeed the 5-point stance. Coming up, parting words from the key member of the process that you don't want to miss. All right, we roll on Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. And look, we're finishing up our second week of the show, and we're sort of here. We're, as you and Junior like to say, water is finding its level. But when we started the show a week ago Monday, we were very open and honest. Look, we get it. It's a new thing.
Oh, yeah.
Mike and Mike were great for 18 years, and Mike's going to have his own show coming up later on in 2018, and we're going to be doing this, and everybody's going to be having their own fun, and it'll be a blast. But we understood it was a transition.
Right.
And we sort of made this joke.
Yeah.
That, look, we have a swear jar. You have a swear jar in the family. Every time you say something bad, you put money in, and then at the end you either donate it or you buy a prize for somebody or something like that. Exactly. So we made this joke that we had a Mike and Mike swear jar, that every time somebody said Mike and Mike instead of Golic and Wingo, we'd put money in the swear jar.
And we've been pretty good about it, right?
Very, very good.
Yeah.
Big fella, it's time for you to put some in the jar.
That's DollarShaveClub.com/Mike. Back after this, Mike and Mike.
You said Mike and Mike.
I mean, and I said it so just naturally.
Yeah, it was just rote behavior.
Because you kind of said it one time.
I almost said Mike, and I stopped.
We caught ourselves. Yeah. I almost said it one time and caught myself. That was just a natural Mike and Mike.
Look, it's like, what do we talk about with athletes and golfers? Muscle memory.
Yeah.
Okay, it's hard. Change is hard.
Wow.
So we understand.
That was something.
That was very, very good. So we have the initial swear jar.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
it. Well, what are we saying every time? It's $1,000.
It's you know what? It's 10,000 bitcoins.
There you
go.
It is. That's DollarShaveClub.com/Mike. Back after this, Mike and Mike.
You said Mike and Mike.
In your defense, though, the promo code for that read was Mike. So does that make you feel better?
It was.
Does that make you feel better?
Yes, it was. So no, it doesn't.
Okay.
I
just trying for you.
Put money in the jar.
Putting money in the jar. We'll get 16,000 bitcoins in there, which will be worth $33 billion by the end of the day. Okay, we talked about this a little bit. The Sixers have had so many of those high draft picks. They got rid of one of them. The Nets have picked up Jahlil Okafor in a trade with the 76ers. Brooklyn also lands guard Nick Stauskas and a 2019 second-rounder, while the Sixers get forward Trevor Booker. Okafor was the number 3 choice of the 2015 draft, has played in just 2 games this season. Obviously one of the reasons why Joel Embiid has been a monster. Ben Simmons has done great. And Joel Embiid, who might represent the process more than anyone else, he's played in 31 games in his first 3 seasons, said he had some parting words for his former teammate.
Like everybody else, and thanks to them.
What did you say to him?
I was just like, love you, new beginnings, love you, good luck, and then I made sure to let him know that I was going to kick his for the next. I don't know, we play them 4 times a year, so I made sure to let him know that every year 4 times I'm going to kick his.
So that went very quickly from I love you to I am kicking your you-know-what 4 times a year.
Yeah, listen, and for Okafor, it's been interesting, as you mentioned, a number 3 overall pick. Team president Brian Colangelo said he reached a deal with a team he declined to name to trade Okafor last season until it fell apart at the last minute. That led, as you can imagine, to a pretty awkward situation after that where you think you're getting traded, then you're not, and then you got to go back to the team that tried to trade you. Okafor didn't even travel with the team during the trade deadline. He did lead the Sixers in scoring as a rookie with Embiid out with injuries. Okafor played 55 games last season, never really messed with Embiid. And then Okafor started piling up the did not plays, the DNPs. Those stretched into this season, and obviously life is going to go on without him. As Brett Brown, coach, said, he can now go play basketball again, which is true. He's going to get new life to go play ball there and kind of do his thing. But Embiid, I love Joel Embiid.
He's a national treasure already.
Absolutely.
Right? He's phenomenal.
Dude, he's that athlete of today, which is an athlete of today, big and can do anything. And then he is fantastic on social media. I mean, he just absolutely is. So there's nothing not to love about the guy.
By the way, did you see the picture of him next to Jose Altuve at the Sports Illustrated Person of the Year Awards? It was amazing that they're both dominant athletes in their chosen profession.
Really incredible.
And there's no way one could do what the other one is doing.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
It was hard to believe that those were two from the same species.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
two of the best in their sports,
quite the contrast. But
Wow.
Embiid is a lot of fun, and we'll see if Jahlil Okafor, as you said, can get it going for the Nets. All right, one more hour to go here on Golic and Wingo. Coming up, we got Scott Frost, who went undefeated at UCF and now is home at Nebraska, his alma mater. He'll join us next, plus Jalen Rose in the next hour. That's all ahead on not Mike and Mike, but Golic and Wingo. Stay with us on a Friday.